I bought this property in 2010. It's 100 hectares. When I got here, there was mostly an enormous weed problem, lantana. I knew that that was going to be a real problem. I didn't really know how to handle it. I slowly, myself, just mostly pulled the lantana, and it's amazing what you can do in a short time. And I'm seeing the results now of some really good bush coming through the lantana, or the lantana that was there. I have an aerial photograph which shows the place in the 1950s, where most of the forest that you can see behind me just wasn't there. It was as bare as a board. Then the regrowth started to happen, and it came up very thickly. It's probably all much the same age. It's locked itself up, and there's no light getting in, so you're not getting any understory or the small grasses and herbs and forbs coming through. So I needed to think about how I was going to manage that, and so I've had to go from there.
So Judy and I met through the Hunter Farm Forestry Network. I came out to Judy's property to explore options of what to do with her forest. And we've had a long relationship of looking at how Judy can manage her forests for production and biodiversity together. So a lot of our forests on farms around the Hunter have come back from a cleared paddock, and a whole lot of eucalypts or gum trees have grown up all together at once. Often a single species and all one age. Often these trees are too closely spaced. There's too many of them competing all together for the site resources, so for the light, for the water, for the nutrients. What we're trying to do is thin that forest out so it grows more vigorously and progresses to a more natural forest in a faster time frame, to get the hollows and the complexity that a natural forest would have. In certain situations, the focus can be on production, thinning to get grass growing for cattle grazing, or thinning to get the trees growing faster for timber. But we can marry these all together, and a lot of the time we're thinning for the benefits of production, but also biodiversity. So when I'd walk into a forest, I'd have a look at whether it looks like it's all one age group, and look at how the understory is, whether it's bare on the ground, and what sort of condition the forest is in. First of all, we were marking up the trees to keep, to give a visual assessment of where those trees might be, and to see the final spacings of the trees. We'll be keeping trees for a whole lot of different reasons. We keep the habitat trees. They might have hollows that are very important for our arboreal mammals. We might keep a tree that's not so perfect, but it might be a different species that we don't have a lot of. When the forest has its marks, you can do a basal area assessment of the forest and see the level of competition in the forest currently and post-thinning. And we measure that in metres squared per hectare, and we do a basal area sweep and get a measurement. It relates to the height of the trees and the stage of growth of the forest, of what level of basal area you can thin down to. And this is important for legislation. There are certain limits that you can't go below when you're thinning. So you have to have a good handle on the extent you're thinning your forest. What I do when I'm in the forest is measure the diameters of the tree to get a gauge of how big those trees are and how far apart they should be spaced, because there's some very easy rules of thumb on how far apart they should be spaced at certain diameters. Then when we've got our spacing and we've marked up the trees, I go around with an axe and actually make a cut into the sapwood of the tree. It has to go in through the bark and into the sapwood, and inject some poison with a poison pack, and make sure it sucks into the sapwood of the tree.
In the area where I have thinned, the small understory, small trees are coming up now, and also the grasses and the little things, the little orchids and and herbs and forbs are coming. So it's looking like it possibly might have looked 200 years ago. I've had an enormous amount of help through Hunter Local Land Services and before then catchment management, and I wouldn't have been able to do this work without that help. I'm getting to the stage where I feel that I'm actually providing a really good habitat for fauna. We need little pockets we need big pockets, and we need linkages through the landscape so that we can preserve the biodiversity and have wildlife being able to move freely. I think we're producing an important resource, just as important as somebody producing cattle or sheep or other things you get from the land.
She has options in the future for future generations to create options for production, but also to create a really biodiverse area of forest.
A healthy forest will produce timber much better than an unhealthy forest, and that healthy forest is also a biodiverse forest.